Right. So one of the things that I've noticed about this realm or this prison planet is that like it's all because there is a lot of talk about the lot of like the law of karma, and like you don't want to accumulate bad karma. Like, and if you're a good person, good things will happen to you. If you're a bad person, bad things will happen to you. But it seems like this is the way the program is designed on this prison planet, is that karma seems to work in reverse, right? And you know, yet again, like a karma is fake and gay. It is designed to, lock you in a cycle of reincarnation, trying to pay off karmic debt, right? Even though the world's run by pedos, karma's totally real, right, guys? But the thing about like the law of karma is that it might be like a real law inside the simulation, but it might, because of the inversion that happens on this planet, because of the fact that bad people tend to get ahead, evil people tend to win. Maybe karma actually works in like a reverse kind of a way, which is interesting to me because that does seem to be, the thing. Yet again, if you look at like the people who are successful, the people who run things, so to speak, the people who get good luck or whatever, it does seem to be of the opposite of like what you see in the movies, where like the good guy wins for being good and going through all the trials and tribulations, and like the bad guy gets punished and he loses everything at the end. But that doesn't seem. And one of the most obvious examples of this is Jimmy Savile. He's this guy who's I, I think he was like an actor or something, or some famous guy who went around the UK molesting kids while he was doing his like or whatever it is he was. Like I don't know if he like worked for the BBC, or if he was like like a journalist or like a TV show host or whatever, or like a comedian or something. He was like an entertainer of sorts, but he went around the UK molesting children, and he ended up dying of old age. Right, and he ended up like dying of old age, and like this whole idea of like, oh, like, well, karma will get to him, like that's not karma. Like a guy molesting kids his entire life and him dying of old age, and then people finding out after, or people finding out way too late that like, oh man, he actually did this, that, and the other, to like bad thing, right? That I feel like that happens a lot more than people will admit. I feel like that happens a lot more than people realize, and another thing that I'll say is like the more you go out of your way to help people, it does seem to be like that. That does seem to open up the gateway for parasitic behavior to enter, right? But because, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do good things. You should do good things, if it's not like to the point where like to the point, because like you have people who are too nice. You have people who are they're good people, but like they're doing it at the expense of themselves, or they're doing it at like they're sacrificing their entire life. Like they're messing up their entire life to help someone, to like help a complete stranger or whatever. And I'm saying like you should be a nice person, but be reasonable about it, right? Yeah, and you shouldn't be nice just for the sake of a reward, right? You shouldn't be like, a good person for the sake of Gibbs, or like a reward of some sort. But at the same time, it does seem to be like the more you go out of your way to assist people, it does seem to be like the system punishes good behavior, and it rewards evil behavior, because I feel like that is an element of the loosh farm, right? If you look at like the harvesting of negative energy that goes on this planet, the harvesting of the loosh, right? The loosh, as it's called, right? That happens on this planet. That does seem to be like a feature of this. Like, why does karma work in reverse on this planet? Yet again, karma as like a computer program. It's a matrix program. It's not like, oh well, you stepped on a bug when you were 8, so now you got to reincarnate 10,000 more lifetimes, right? That's obviously like this whole idea of having to pay back karmic debt is fake and gay. It's used to get you trapped into this cycle, right? But um, one of the things about like the law of karma as like a computer program is that it does seem to be designed to like generate loosh, because if you reward metaphysically through the simulation or whatever, if you reward evil behavior and if you punish good behavior, then that generates more loosh. It generates more like shaking the rat cage. And so I do think that may be a reason why karma does seem to work in reverse right now. I'm not saying that it happens I'm not saying that happens like all the time. So sometimes good people do get a reward. Sometimes bad people do get what they deserve. Justice does happen, but it doesn't seem to happen often enough. It doesn't seem to be that, yeah, especially if you look at the people who run the world. If you look at the types of people that run the world, the people who own the private islands, and the people who have a proclivity for the young, if you know what I mean. Like, those are the people who are running things, and it does seem to be that this computer program, this matrix, will reward evil behavior because it generates more negative energy, right? And yet again, and so it does seem to be like almost like the natural behavior pattern, of people, is because of the fact that evil is rewarded and good is punished, right? People are going to tend towards evil, sociopathic behavior, right? And yet again, if it rewards evil behavior, then evil people tend to get on the top. Like, it's like a reverse of what the hierarchy should be, where instead of good people having billions of dollars, instead of good people having access to resources, instead of good people having access to everything they could ever need, right? It does seem to like work in reverse, where all the evil people have more than they'll ever need, but all the good people are constantly struggling. It seems to be, and yet again, there are exceptions to the rule here, but it does seem to be that reward system, that system of reinforcements for the mind, it does seem to be designed to support the bottom line. Yet again, that's something that I talk about in a lot of my videos. Is that the bottom line of this realm? It's like the bottom line of a corporation. The bottom line of a corporation is to generate revenue, to generate money, and so any scummy thing that they'll do to generate money, that's the bottom line. That's the reason why companies exist, right? In the same way that this prison planet, this loosh farm, right, it exists to generate negative energy. So everything that about this place, like the way that it's designed, the way that it's set up, is specifically designed to generate loosh. And so I do believe like this whole like reverse law of karma is another feature of that, where it's like, yet again, like evil behavior creates loosh. It generates suffering. It generates like the feeling of betrayal, the feeling of you're being oppressed by a tyrant and all this other stuff, right? All the stuff that evil behavior generates is loosh, right? And so obviously a loosh farm would metaphysically, through some law of karma, as like a background program, it would reward evil behavior because that is loosh generating behavior. And another thing that I've noticed when it comes to like the whole like law of karma stuff is that like the more you isolate yourself from the outside world, and this might be why monks go into monasteries, and this might be like why a lot of people who are more spiritually in tune, more awakened, so to speak, are introverts, people who want to isolate from the outside world, people who don't interact with people, right? Because it does seem to be that like the less you interact with this realm, the the less sort of like the less I don't want to say like like the less karma you accumulate, but because yet again karma's fake and yay. It's a part of it's a system of reinforcements in this computer program, but it does seem to be like the less you interact with the world, the less bad shit happens to you, right? It's almost like Chinese handcuffs, where it's like if you stop doing stuff and you slowly move it out, then you get out of the Chinese handcuffs, right? But if you try to like the more you like struggle, the more you sort of act, the more you interact with the outside world, like the more negative energy comes your way, like the more and the traditional definition of karma is actually causality, like that's the closest sort of definition for like what karma traditionally means, is that it means cause and effect. It reminds me of the Merovingian from the Matrix films, right? He talks about cause and effect, right? And that is what the traditional definition of the law of karma is. And so it is almost like there is like that spiritual inclination to isolate from the outside world, right? To not interact with people outside of maybe your close family or whatever, to not talk to people, to not interact with people as much as possible. That does seem to be like almost like a defense against the reverse karma in this realm, because yet again, the less you interact with the world, the less shit comes back to you, because you're not giving your energy, your time, your effort, your psychic energy, your focus, your attention. You're not giving it to the outside world, and so you're not putting stuff in there that comes back to you to affect you negatively because of the reversed, distorted, fake law of karma that exists here. And so I do think that like that might be a reason of why there is like this instinct to isolate oneself from the outside world. Like that, a lot of yet again, like a lot of like awakened people tend to have that impulse. A lot of people who are aware of the true nature of things, they tend to have that impulse of isolation because like they're cutting off, they're cutting themselves off from a negative cycle, of and this is the same thing when it comes to like current events, right? I don't really interact with current events. I don't really care about whatever big media story, like whatever big media story, whatever big political puppet show is going on, in the news cycle. Like you got to get like the news cycle, right? The like the reincarnation cycle, the cycle of karma, right? The Ouroboros. You see the symbolism there, right? Yet again, like so it's like the less you interact with like stuff like current events, the less you interact with people in the outside world, the less you involve yourself in it's almost like you're protecting your energy. It's almost like you're a water balloon, right? And you're like the more you interact with the outside world, the more people you interact with, the more like even like eating like bad food or taking drugs or like interacting with substances or like getting into relationships with like random people or you're just talking to people and wasting your energy, with people who don't necessarily serve. And I'm not saying that you should be friends with people for the sake of an outcome, but I am saying that it is important to to make sure that like to make sure that whoever you're interacting with is like not dragging you down, right? But it does seem to be like the more people I interact with, whenever I look back on my life, right? Like the more the more people I interact with, the more I talk with people, the more involved I am in the outside world. It does seem to be like it's like my energy, like my battery is drained the more I interact with the outside world, and that does seem to be yet again like the battery being drained, yet again like us being sort of like the power source of this matrix, right? So that is like another thing on top of like this whole idea of like karma being working in reverse. Is that yet again like isolation does seem to be like a protection from the fake law of karma that exists in this realm. But yeah, this is a video.